And away we go. See what I did there? We got Dan. Yeah, we got Dan behind the glass today. It's exciting. Old times. This is From A to B, presented by awesomemo.com. I'm Andrew. That's Ben. We have Dan with us today. He's filling in because Josh is on the run from the Hurricanes. So
scary stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Wishing him the best of luck. That's not a fun situation. So I hope that everything goes as well as it can. It seems like, at least people know it's coming. So hopefully we can keep the casualties down. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of damage, but that's scary stuff when we don't treat our planet right.
Yeah, it's not good, but smart thing, obviously. People evacuated. It seems most people are not doing, making it more unnecessary than it has to be. So hopefully damage will be down. You never know with these things. But that will, I'm sure, for the NFL and the DFS world, may be something we talk about later in the week as the storm will be somewhat inland. I don't know exactly what games may get some of that, but we will see.
Yeah, are the Panthers at home this week?
No. They wouldn't be able to play, I would assume.
Yeah, I would think so. But yeah, some residual effects. I don't know if it goes, whatever. Never mind. I don't even want to go into
spec. Yeah, I can't pretend to know weather stuff either. So,
and I just think about all the brushback the actual professional meteorologists get on Twitter, and I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. So we will talk about other things. Wednesday show, it's an odd week. Golf is sort of off. We are going to spend a little bit of time talking about the European Tour events because why not? There's nothing else to do. You were literally talking about how you're going to play baseball tonight, and you never play baseball.
Yeah, desperate times. We were talking before the show. There was a college football showdown slate today between Campbell and Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, and I've never heard of either of those schools. So.
I mean, Campbell doesn't even play Division I footballs. They're not.
How much did he lay down?
No, I would have. I can't in New York. I almost bet the game. Coastal Carolina's 29-point favorite. We'll see what the old fighting Camels can muster up on the other side. So, yeah, today's, an atypical schedule for us. Usually we do the traditional golf show on Tuesday, but since there's no PGA golf, we decided we'll talk some Euro Tour today. We may give some, towards the end, NFL overarching stuff for the slate as later in the week, we are going to get more into that starting tomorrow with three fellas, which my contract holdout has ended. I'm back in business, baby. Mm-hmm. I'll be joining you too.
Yeah, we had practice in pads yesterday, getting out there, Ben's getting his conditioning back. So
ready to roll.
Yeah, we're excited to see that. In general, on Wednesdays, I think this will usually be our sort of biggest focus on the NBA day when NBA season starts, or even before NBA season starts. I think we're going to start rolling out sort of season preview-ish stuff on Wednesdays coming up shortly. Maybe not next week, but within the next two, we're going to turn our focus towards our favorite sport. Is it your favorite sport?
No.
College
football, probably, to be honest. It's close though. The NBA is great and it's in an awesome spot. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited even for the regular season, which is a rarity.
Definitely. And Wednesday is usually a giant DFS slate. Typically as well. So we should have lots to talk about. But today we are going to talk about golf. You're specifically junior varsity, AAA, bad golf. Ben prefers bad sports. I don't know why I thought that the NBA was because we talk about the NBA a lot, but clearly it's not your favorite sport because it's really good.
That's right.
You love the Drek. And here we are. We're going to Europe. We're going to the Dutch. You want to break down the course, Tim style?
Sure. So, this week we are in Europe. We're at the KLM Open. And the course is, I believe it's called the Dutch, which is kind of a cool name. First thing, if you're looking at course history, it's only been at this place twice. So if you're looking back, it was at a multitude of different other courses in the Netherlands. So you can kind of throw that out.
Was it here the last 2 years or?
Yes. So 2016, 2017, you can rely on that course data if that's how you want to look. But before then, not going to be super useful. So looking at the course, it looks like it's pretty short. Basically, I think it's fair to say it's around 7,000 flat, which is not overly intimidating by any stretch. It's a par 71, makes it even shorter. And it seems scoreable. I mean, the last 2 years, the winner has been, kind of in the middle, upper teens, looks like -19, -15. So it's certainly gettable. You never know with the wind and the conditions. But I think with calm conditions, you're going to see a pretty easy course. It's link style, so we kind of know what that's about. Sometimes you want to focus more on just really not making the huge mistakes. If you avoid the giant numbers, it's very gettable. The course average is brought down by blowups. If you hit it in the really bad burn, really bad rough, there is a lot of water. So that can just, you're going to see guys making massive numbers. And if they stay out of those, you're probably going to see them attack. Other than that, traditional, there's going to be bunkers. Looks like the greens are bent grass. I didn't see too much besides all of that. I think that, if you want to talk about what kind of player can succeed here, pretty traditional link style with, you want to be accurate off the tee, keep it out of trouble, be somewhat nifty. I think scrambling is always important in Europe.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Scramble fest.
Yeah. That's going to be fun to see, I guess. It's on, what time does it start? It starts at 10:45 tonight, I believe, is lock, right? Or for me, so it's the middle.
Okay, I was going to say, I think mine's at it's around 2 a.m.
Yep.
Eastern.
Okay, so you won't be staying up to watch that, but maybe I'll catch a little bit of the start tonight. We'll see what happens here.
I'll see it in the morning.
Yep. So we're headlined by Lee Westwood, Eddie Pepperell, Chris Wood. Your boy, you like Chris Wood?
Yeah. Matt Wallace, I thought, was one of the better plays, and he's resting. So knock him out of this illustrious field. First thing that came to mind, and maybe I'm off base here. We've talked about on the PGA Tour a number of times where there's not a big difference between, the 12K and the 9K. I don't see a difference between Lee Westwood and a multitude of guys on this slate. I don't know about you.
No, not really. This is not my wheelhouse, I will say. I know these guys. I've studied them. I have some data on them, but I did not make projections for this slate. This is not really my group of dudes as much. This is going to be way more your show, which is going to be good.
All right, let's get hot takey-ish. No, I mean, it just seems that I'll say this: the best players in Europe, it's no secret, they play over here, so they're already gone. Right. Then you do have some consistent, real players over there that, I think would warrant a different tier than some of these guys. They're not here. So we're left with some solid Euro players, but there's a bunch of them, and I don't see a huge difference. So that's a funny way of me saying I think balance is going to be a lot more popular. I don't know why someone would really, unless they have a line on, they really like Westwood or Pepperell, paying up there when you can just take a savings and work down to someone like Andy Sullivan or even Effie Barnrat. It just seems so much more logical.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You've got Evan Royen, who is probably going to be chalk. Played okay lately, but man.
Yeah, I mean, again, we only have a 2-year sample size at this course, so it's going to be, how have these guys played in the past couple of weeks? The stats are limited as opposed to what we have on the PGA Tour. I want guys they're not just strictly bombers. That I think that hurts Ryan Fox in particular. I'm not sure how much he can use his length. We know he's a super bomber. If this course is more, plot around, avoid mistakes, keep it steady, his best weapon's going to be somewhat limited. But man, it really was interesting when I opened up the salaries. I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect this.
Yeah, there's some wacky names that are very expensive. Your boy Maximilian Kiefer is up at 8,300.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. All right, well, I'm going to work down a little. So as I mentioned, I think for me, I'd much rather start in the Chris Wood at the 10K range. He's 10.6. I don't mind that, but I have a feeling I'll look to the 9K range. Sullivan, Renzo Vera, Effie Barnrat, Van Ruin, even Zanotti. I think that's as good a player as you're going to find in a field like this. So I'll kind of go through those guys. I don't really mind that. Yeah, Lorenzo Vera has the best combination between he was third last week. He has a top 10 here. If that gravitates people towards him, I don't think it's overwhelming. You're talking about sample sizes of 1 on both fronts.
And that guy's terrible usually.
Yeah, no, I'm
struggling with this because it's like that guy is unplayable even at a Euro event most of the time, and now he's 9,600. And
yeah, we're mentioning him as one of the safer people, which is it just shows. So I'll go with Effie Barnrat, even Andy Sullivan, who's to me a player. He's not at the top of the top, but he can play. Then working down a little, I think we do have some interesting names, and this is where I could see going balanced. I'll rattle them off, and then you chime in with your boy Hao Tong Lee.
Yeah, these are all the guys I know.
Yeah, because these are usually like the bottom bin of WGCs, things like that. And so Hao Tong Lee, Jordan Smith, Detry, Soren Kelson, Southgate, Ross Fisher. This is where I expect to kind of load up on this range. Some of these guys are pretty talented. Detry in particular, he is a Thomas Pieters clone, so another Belgian. Young, but I definitely think he's trending upwards, and we're going to see him one day on the PGA Tour. I think he has that kind of talent. So I looked at him, and then you did mention Maximilian Kiefer, who is a guy that I've convinced people to play before, and it never works out. No. I like him, though. Can I convince you to play him again this week?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, fair enough. He's played it the past 2 years. He was 34th, 25th, so nothing bad, basically mirroring results. His form really fell off early this year, and he seems to have found it. He was the first-round leader last week, regressed to a pretty average finish. But I do think that his skill set in particular fits this course. He gains strokes off the tee, and it's not with length. He's kind of in the Molinari of he keeps it relatively straight. Good scrambler. He can putt. And I do think that even though this course is gettable, you are going to need to be somewhat creative around the greens. That can help him here. It's not overly long. So 8,300, I doubt he's popular, even though it is hard to get a read on ownership in the old Euro golf event. But that's a guy I feel pretty comfortable with in a situation like this.
Yep. Yeah. Alex Levy, who's like the token Frenchman in all the majors.
That guy. Remember early in the year when he was just like cooking?
Yeah, vaguely.
It was like, oh, he's going to be on the Ryder Cup team. Like, oh, he's going to be.
No, he's bad.
Yeah, it didn't work out. He was like 12K in some Euro fields earlier this year. Form regressed, and that's what happens to someone like that. I would rather go Joachim Lager and right below 2 top 20s at this course. He was 9th last year. The form isn't great, but again, I just the skill set of what he does kind of catches my eye in a situation like this. I'm not punishing distance, but I just think you're going to find most of the guys on the Euro Tour, they don't have complete games. If they did, they'd probably be on the PGA Tour. So there's people with, a area of weakness. So if their big strength is that they bomb it, the rest of their game is probably pretty suspect. And I think in a situation like this, that can be a detriment.
Yeah. That is Dietrich's biggest strength, but he is probably one of those dudes that's overall talented enough that, like you were saying, may be on the PGA Tour. He's probably going to be able to transcend that.
Yep. And that's a really good point, because I should have pointed that out. When you have talent like I think he does, and maybe I overrate that, but he has the ability to have an all-around game and actually exactly what you just said. Some of these other dudes, I don't even know if Scott Hend is in this field. If he is, though, he is a super bomber. Yeah, he is in this field. Super bomber. It's just so hard to rely on a guy like that because he literally is live for an 8 or 9 almost every tournament. And it's hard to kind of combat that, especially if you can't just murder 4 par 5s.
Right. And it's not that, just to sort of drive home what your overall point was, I think you said it pretty well, but just to make it even more clear, it's not that being a good driver is a bad thing. Like if Rory was here, like, listen, this is Rory's tour. This is where he belongs. He's coming home. He just crushes it here. If he was playing here, it's not like you would dock him for the fact that he's a good driver. It's just that most of these guys are not good enough to play on the PGA Tour. So if they are monster drivers, then something else is really wrong with their game. Petrie is possibly going to be an exception for that. He's still young and has a lot of projection to fill out. So we'll see what happens there. Is Paul Dunn the best Irishman in this field? Because you said that about him.
Him and Patty Harrington. Yeah, Paul Dunn. To me, he's another one. The form is pretty bad, and it's not pretty bad. It's bad. Last 5 events, he's got a string of missed cuts and a couple basically dead last after making the cut finishes. I do think he's one of the more talented players in the field. We've seen him play a little over here. He also has liked this course the last 2 years, 16th and 14th. So I don't mind that, but my overall philosophy with guys like this, fields like this, is you kind of have to ride the hot hand a little more than I normally do, because I don't think many of these guys have the abilities to turn it on and off as easily because their games aren't that good. They get on streaks, they get on runs. And I think it's apparent we were kind of talking about, I'll jump real quick to Levy again. There was a time when that guy was the best player on the European Tour. Now he's very, very, very bad. You're going to see that more and more. There's finer margins because the talent gap is not as much. It's blurry lines. And if you get on a run, you can move up quickly. And when you're struggling, it is tough to right the ship. Yeah.
Speaking of struggling, big name that I would imagine will get some traction just because people know him and like him. But Andrew Johnston, he's good. He can't putt.
I thought you were going somewhere else. We'll get there. The beef. Yeah, I mean, he's a weird case, and I know you would have numbers on this, probably not in front of you. He's like a super hardcore specialist, is he not?
I don't have this whole strokes gained on the Euro Tour thing is pretty new to me. I have not been able to delve into it. I usually used, because I put the Euro Tour data into my projection models, but I'd always use just GIR, scrambling, putts per GIR as proxies for strokes gained approach and around the green and putting. So I don't have that off the top of my. I don't have that available to me either. What do you think his specialty is?
So it's not even that it's his specialty. I don't have numbers in front of me. I've noticed that in some brutal tracks, he is more equipped to shoot a 1 under when the scoring average is 5 over. He really thrives in a tougher scoring environment. I don't see him as much. Not that this is going to be a pure shootout, but the tougher the conditions, really windy, really rainy, he has the abilities to kind of go there. So, talent-wise, I'm with you.
Can't putt, so
yeah, when you can't putt, and you've talked about that on a lot of shows. It's tough. If you set yourself up with 10, 15 footers repeatedly, you got to knock them down, or it's just very hard to go low.
Right.
So the guy that I thought you were talking about was Martin Keimer.
Yeah.
And you look, in this field, to see him at 7,400 was pretty surprising on name recognition only. Then you look, and it's just he really has done nothing for a couple months now. I don't even really like it. I think I'm putting a pretty good emphasis on scrambling. And we know that his big weak link is scrambling. When he's had success in real, obviously, majors and other big events, he's been able to putt from off the green. He's limited in his chipping and scrambling. So I don't know how much I really want to go there. I think I'd rather go with someone more in form. There are some guys in that range, whether it's Benjamin, Herbert, whatever his another Frenchman, or even like Sam Horsfield, just playing a little better than a guy like Keimer. And I think course fit-wise, fit a little better.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
No. Your mic is low. I can hear you a little, but
is it quality or just volume?
Volume.
Okay.
Like I hear you. You sound like you're giving off mysterious takes, just subtle, very subtle.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can get in touch with
Dan knows for what it's worth. I'm just going to keep rattling off plays while you sort that off.
Okay.
Yeah, so where are we? I think working down, this is another guy. What I did with this field, I looked through the pricing and it seemed, I don't want to say it was inefficient. It's just that these guys can be so drastically altered based on a couple tournaments that guys did catch my eye. One of them that I do want to talk about a little is Nino Bertasio, playing a little better. He was 16th last week. Another guy who, if you just look at him on the Euro Tour, what he kind of does well should translate here. I worry about him a little off the tee. That's definitely his weak link. But I think a lot of that, I'm going to contradict myself here because I do think you need to keep it in play. That is important here. And driving accuracy is where he struggles. But if he can attack this course with the lack of length, we've talked about guys like Gary Woodland, Jimmy Walker. If you avoid the spraying by clubbing down, then your biggest weakness is mitigated by, your lack of erratic play. And he has plenty of length to overcome that. If he can do that tee to green, I do worry. Everything else should be fine. He's a excellent putter. When you have the ability like that on the greens, the upside's always there, the Kevin Kisners of the world, things like that. So he did catch my eye. I think I'm not looking to play much cash. I wouldn't go there for something like cash. As a off-the-wall upside play, definitely a guy I've looked to.
Okay, that's interesting.
Little better.
A little better?
Yeah. Let's see.
There's no volume button on my mic, so I don't
a little
know.
Better again.
Okay.
Just baby steps. We'll get it. Oh God. So I'm just scrolling down, in the sevens here. We have Nicholas Colsaerts, who's a favorite of, sounds like you're in the tunnel there.
Me?
Yo, my God. Now you're very loud.
Jesus Christ.
One more time for the
Hi.
loud.
Loud?
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
We can go with it. Just don't scream. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So Colsaerts is a guy that if people have played Europe, they should be familiar with. He was super highly touted, was like the it guy maybe 10 years ago at this point, really did not pan out. Game is trending upward, does not fit the mold. If I play multiple teams and I'm running, as we often talk about on this show, correlated lineups, I might throw him in a really aggressive one where I lean more on guys who are atypical with incentive bombing it. The scoring is there. The miscut risk is immense. And it is worth noting. So if you haven't played Europe before, it's not top 70, it's 65 here. That's the traditional Euro format. Makes it even harder to get guys through the cut. So 6 of 6 can be really, really tough. And that's, something we just have to deal with. I don't think you can really build too much differently, to be honest. You just kind of have to approach it as you normally will, but you do have to be aware that getting 6 of 6 is brutally hard. If you do, the payoff's even better because not many people do it.
Like it. That works for me.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anybody down low that interests you? Is Matthias Schwab any good?
So he's an interesting case. I'm actually glad you brought him up. He's in the same price range. He's Austrian, not a hotbed for golf. We got burned from there.
Better than France.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. He is really young. Talent is there. Erratic. We've kind of seen if you take a snapshot of what he's been doing. So he had 2 missed cuts. He was 7th at the Porsche European Open, was cut at the Nordia, 9th at the Czech, and then 2 more missed cuts. So he's got 2 top 10s and 5 missed cuts in his last 7. I think in a field like this, his talent in terms of distance from the top is elevated, and that gives his upside a boost. The missed cut's going to be there, and I don't mind that as a flyer. Again, when we have a field like this, I'm more apt to just take guys that I think are purely the best golfers, because it's just you're not going to get guys where it's like, all right, he's playing well, he likes the course, tee to green, he's solid, and he doesn't mind bent grass. It's very hard to find that on the European Tour. It's hard enough to find that on the PGA Tour. So I'll take a stab there. That's an interesting range, in these low 7s. Sharma is right there, who, again, another guy, a couple months ago, he would have been 12K in this field. Now you look and the form is completely lost. It's tough to really delineate some of these guys. Will the quote unquote teardrop help them? It hasn't in the last month or two. I don't think I'm looking to go to him. I would prefer taking someone like Schwab, even a guy like Justin Walters, who his form is playing well. He was 3rd here. Go ahead.
He was on my list to ask about. He kind of stood out to me just from a cursory. Looks like he's playing well tee to green.
Yeah, and he's one of the better players tee to green, I think, down here. He also has the luxury. He was 3rd last year here, and his form has been good. Another one, though, caution, just the red flag for him off the tee, bombs it pretty, wild at the same time. So could he get into a lot of trouble there? Of course he can. Now, if he keeps it steady, everything else hits at plenty of greens. Putts, not the best. He's more of the I'm trying, for people watching to relate these guys to golfers that maybe you're a little more familiar with. Kind of has like a Luke List game. I would say, tee to green is not bad. It's got some power off the tee. Putting's been an issue. Scrambling's not the best.
Okay.
So yeah, it's tricky. And then I'm gonna just again one more in the mid 7s is Aaron Rye.
Mm-hmm.
Form somewhat murky. He had a couple of T25s and then some miscuts in there. But another guy, he's young, came up through their version of the web. He was on the Challenge Tour, playing some good golf. The opposite. I think he fits the course very well. He's not a long hitter. He's very accurate off the tee, though. His irons hits plenty of greens, and he hasn't been awful at scrambling. The Achilles heel, he's had some issues putting, but at the same time, his strokes gained putting is not horrendous. He's got some metrics that don't look overly flattering in the short game department, but it's nothing that I don't think where it's like, oh, geez, this guy really has got some issues. And I don't mind taking a stab with someone like that. Again, I know I'm kind of beating this point to death. He's getting such a talent bump because there aren't not even the Dustin Johnsons of the world. There aren't, the Tommy Fleetwood, the Alex Norns of the world here.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense to me. What do you know about Jason Scrivener?
Jason Scrivener. Mm-hmm. Not much, to be honest. I believe he's South African off the top of my head.
Maybe.
Australian.
Yep.
Close enough. Hey, he's eligible for the President's Cup, so
Do you know if you're South Africa, the accent to a dumb American, they have similar sounding accents. That is not that's a very touchy subject. I went to grad school with a South African guy, and I thought he was from Australia at first, and he did not take kindly to that. It's good to know.
Yeah, I never knew that. So I don't know much about him. I mean, I'm looking right now. He had a decent result here last year. His game looks pretty middling across the board, except when you get to the greens. That's definitely his weak link. He's, looks like really struggled there. So what just out of curiosity, what made you kind of notice him? Was there a specific thing?
Yeah, that his tee to green numbers weren't atrocious for a guy that's 7,100.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to see in something like this, if you find that in this range, it's most likely going to be that their putting is
so bad, really
bad. Like this guy, and sample size has to be noted here. His strokes gained putting is 258th.
Yep. Other guys that stood out to me there, even lower, were Pedro Oriol and Jeff Winther. I can't imagine they're much better putters.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Jeff Winther because at least I've heard of that guy. Yeah, he top 10'd at the Czech. That's why I know him. 6,600. So that's you're getting to the range where obviously you're just hoping for make the cut, get on through. Let's check out what he does well, if anything. Jeffy boy. So his irons are pretty strong. Tee to green, as you mentioned. Other than that, he's 207th in strokes gained putting.
Oriol's 240th.
Yeah. And that's what you're going to find here. You're going to be rolling the dice. Can these guys just hold it together? The Benny On formula. They've shown that in a field like this, their tee to green and their irons are probably going to give them plenty of looks. That's not going to be the issue. It's just how many times are they going to be able to convert a 15 or 20 footer? You're going to need to probably make your fair share of those this week. It's not going to be hard to the point where every time you're looking for a lag and a tap in, that's just not going to happen.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Oriol is 277th in strokes gained putting.
He's losing it during the show here.
Gregory Bourdie is down here too. Speaking of trash French golfers,
man, that guy.
Remember when people thought he was good?
Yeah, I remember. I played him in a major, I believe. Mistakes were made.
Whatever. I probably made fun of it, and he was fine for 2 rounds, and I don't know.
That might have happened. Hey, what's up, Will? Dropped in the chat. Good peoples. Yeah, I think you're going to find a lot of formerly, even Bradley Dredge. I'm going to just talk about this lower range.
I liked Dredge. I liked Dredge for a while.
Yeah. He was a good player. And I actually, if I do punt, I am going to go try to go as balanced as I can to avoid this. But this little range at 6'6" is something that I don't mind exploring a little with Bradley Dredge. Manacero he's not the best, but he's somewhat talented. I think you can make a case for him. Mark Warren's form has completely fallen off to the point where I don't think I want to go there. But Dredge and Mateo, not bad if you really are in a jam and you need a punt.
Yeah. We've got Brooks, crappy little brother here.
Chase, where is he?
He's 69.
Yeah, 7 of 21 cuts made. I think that he might get a miniature ownership boost because of his last name.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And that's even worse. So for me, that's a stay away.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it. That's about enough Euro Tour golf, don't you think?
Yeah, I got one just quick overarching theme, and then we can.
I was going to say, we go ahead with your general strategy kind of point.
Yeah, and then we'll put this one, take it behind the barn, and shoot it. I think that you're going to want to go balanced. If you're being unique, it would be spending up to one of the top tier guys. Not a lot of guys are going to do that. but I'm trying to just get in 6 golfers that I at least can say, okay, there's some positives here. And the only way I'm able to do that is to keep it relatively stable. Obviously, you're going to need 6 of 6. You're going to be really tough edges if you're dipping a couple guys in the 6s. More power to you if you can find some cut makers down there. It's not like there aren't guys who are going to make it, but for me, I feel most comfortable trying to jam in this 8K range and maybe, one or two guys, one guy above, one guy below.
Yeah, I'm with you because and I'm pretty comfortable with everyone from Kiefer to Kiradech. Like you can play
4,
maybe not all of them, but most of them. Even Pavon, like that guy's an amazing iron player. He's got that. So
one of the best in this field. He won a tournament not that long ago.
And I mean, maybe, who knows? Because it is weird with Euro Tour stuff because a lot of the time it is just like super hardcores that are playing. But I don't know how this might get a little more casual action because there's no PGA event this week. And the names that people know are going to be the ones that people play. And that's all the the guys that make it into the WGC fields. And I don't think people will necessarily play Pavon very much. So
no, he should not be popular. He does have the win, but other than that, he has no course history here. And him and Zanotti are guys that I do not mind one bit, and I don't think many people are really going to look to them.
Yep. I think that's totally fair. Okay, cool. That I think will wrap up Euro Tour. The Dutch have a good time at the KLM Open. One question from the chat for you before we move on. I think we'll do a quick first look at the NFL slate, but this is another one for you from our buddy Will. If you guys have time today, what, if any, edge are you finding in college football? Has anything changed since it has returned? The one thing I would say is that it seems like everyone is like, it's not like it used to be where if you just do the lowest modicum of research, you're way ahead of the field. But I'll let you field this question largely.
Yeah, a couple things. First thing that feels different for me personally is when I used to build teams, my guys didn't get injured. I'm now 0-2 on the Georgia Tech running back is out for the year, which is terrible. And I had a lot of him been catching some injuries. But on a serious note, what Andrew just said, what I found back in the day of college football is you could borderline build just optimally and you would just be fine because there was just people making mistakes. The information has gotten a lot better. People aren't playing as many guys that just aren't active or have no chance to meet value. And I think we're going to see that. Having said that, I'm not sure that the first 2 weeks are indicative of what we see for the real season because we've had a handful of 50-point spreads on each one of these slates. When we get grinding into conference games, normal matchups, and everything normalizes, I think that we do see some more of the edges that were apparent back in the day.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as it plays out. And I think people will maybe lose some interest in it. I don't know. It's like anything else. You got to, like the NBA is actually way easier at the end of the year. You just have to pay a lot more attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just something that right now, you're debating not only which running back to play, you're debating which running back on a given team to play in terms of in the third quarter, is my starter going to be benched? That's not going to be a decision you're going to be making on most slates. And although there'll be more information for everyone, we'll kind of see who the receivers are and their targets and whatnot. Right now, it's still somewhat of a guessing game.
Yep. 100%. That said, with the injury bug, watch out. Thomas Dietrich is going to tear his ACL on the cart path this weekend.
I've been, I can't complain probably for a long while because I've run very good in some big spots.
Really?
But man, I have caught the little string of bad injury bug, whether it's been even the golf. Paul Casey withdrawing was a bigger deal to me than it was for most. And between that, Fournette, Benson on Georgia Tech, not a great run, but that will normalize like it always does.
Yes, sir. It absolutely will. Okay, moving on. Let's talk just nothing big. We got
Sure.
15 minutes left, but a little bit on some of the bigger themes that might be emerging. Again, we will have our show tomorrow. No Wednesday night show tonight because there's no PGA event, so we're not going to discuss something that doesn't exist for an hour.
Smart.
Not that we're above that.
Yeah, my whole life is just discussing things. Yeah, I'm below that at this point, but we are not going to do that. So tomorrow,
right.
No.
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
And then, tomorrow night we'll have three fellas. Ben is making his return to the field. So the two of us in Lofty. And that is going to be the general Thursday show. We will not have our regular midday show on Thursdays. It will be 7 p.m. Eastern. Us two fellas and your other favorite fella.
Yeah, leading you right up to the Thursday game, which I think is really cool. We'll be talking showdown for sure.
Mm-hmm. We will. Should be a good time. What stands out to me so far? I have never so strongly considered, because I think you're going to have to if you want to get over the field, just hitting the damn lock button on the Steelers group. They're in such a good spot. It's gonna be wild. I think they're gonna be unbelievably popular, but James Conner's still not fully priced. Antonio Brown's not really fully priced either. Ben is, and this is the class we've alluded to this a little bit before. We can get into why this is, but historically, at least the last like 3-4 years in the AFC, New England owns Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh owns Kansas City, and Kansas City owns New England. And that's not due to random happenstance. It's how those teams match up. Kansas City has no one to cover. They not only have no one to, they run a lot of cover one man where they have single high safety and they're asking their cornerbacks to run, to hold single coverage on these, unbelievably talented wide receivers. And then they don't have enough of a pass rush to be able to get through this huge Steelers offensive line. So you've got one guy trying to cover Antonio Brown for
8 seconds.
It's you're toast. That is why they get them. And they can run the ball really well. Lev Bell's a big guy. The KC front seven is not anything special, and it's not that big. So there's a reason they just trounce Kansas City every single time.
I totally see that. It's a situation. Antonio Brown, I don't have much negative to say there. I don't think he's fully priced either. He's going to be popular, but I don't think I care at this juncture. I will say, though, James Conner, I'm not there yet. I'm really not. He did get a price bump. I know he was wildly underpriced last week.
He's still wildly underpriced.
You think
Whether or not you think it's worth the ownership, he should be, for his workload and this matchup, he should be 8,400. I firmly believe that. I have math that backs that up. I have him projecting for 23.21 fantasy points right now, which if you go by, what is my value threshold? We use sort of 2x plus 3.5 for value threshold.
So 617. Yeah.
Yeah. So, 17 is his value threshold. He's clearing 6, which no one does that, but occasionally a quarterback.
Fair enough. Obviously ownership is going to dictate that. There's no doubt in my mind. It's not that I think he's, overpriced, anything like that. I'm not. If he was 80 something, even if he was low owned, I would not play him. I think maybe I'm splitting hairs and I think he should be in the 7s. But we'll see.
Because I think this is actually this is worth talking about, because I know what you're saying, and it's the same reason, and I do this in golf. It's the same reason neither of us played Justin Rose last week. It's because, oh my God, that's a huge price bump. And I don't know that it's totally fair in a golf case, because in golf, you can't really change who you are as a player in a week, right? Or there's no quantifiable thing for that. But this now is a guy who's a fine running back, running behind, I guess the Eagles probably have the best offensive line, but one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in football against the defense that can't stop anybody, especially this team, the way they are built. And it's just, he is a different player because he has a full workload. He's not backup James Conner. He's level workload James Conner. And he's 6'6".
Yeah, no, and that's what I misjudged, was he just took on the full workload. Having said that, and these are not important. It was an overtime game. I did think he was somewhat fortunate. He was crushing value regardless last week.
30 points in regulation. But.
Oh, not at all. I'm just saying, if there's certainly you got to do more at 6-7 than you do at 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you worry, just jumping around a little with the Steelers, we haven't heard much. Big Ben's a little banged up. I'm not overly concerned by that. I did notice it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm honestly not even joking about. Like, hey, I mean, it's not going to be a lock, but I might play 70, 75% Big Ben in tournaments this week just to try to get. I haven't seen a spot like this. I don't remember a spot like this since. Man,
you were I am not on that wavelength at all. I like this play. I see it, but it does not stand out to me as a uniquely good spot.
It's partially because they're going to be – I mean, I think it's a uniquely good spot, but it's partially because they are going to be really heavily owned too. So you're going to have to – it's like a DJ at the FedEx or something like that. And
that's a good point. I think this is important just to flesh this out for people. A lot of times, someone's apprehensive to say, oh, I don't want to allocate so much. If a guy's going to be 25%, you really like it, to get the appropriate leverage, you're going to have to pump it up somewhat. I'm not saying you play 100%, but if you take 30% of him, what are you really doing? You're not making any sort of stand. So you have to be cognizant that getting leverage is relative to how much exposure the field is going to have.
Yep. One thing I will say, going to the other side of the ball, because I see Will is saying that he likes Hunt. Dan's with me. Thank you, Dan. I knew I liked you for some reason. But the one thing that would potentially scare me here for the Steelers offense is the potential ineptitude of Kansas City. I think that the Pittsburgh defense is one that gets torn apart by the Tom Brady's of the world. But it's kind of gimmicky. It's very zone heavy. They blitz a lot. Someone like Pat Mahomes could really make some mistakes against cover. I think they'll, because they try to confuse people. You can't confuse Tom Brady. You probably can confuse Pat Mahomes. We don't really know. But the Kansas City offensive line is nothing special. I would worry a little bit if they just get blown out and Mahomes does bad stuff and then Ben's not throwing it all in the second half. That's the only concern, but
that's certainly part of the reason for me why I'm not as high as you are. 2,700 for the Steelers defense they are someone that is on my list. I think it's certainly a viable game script that they get torched, and it's not because of this offense. It's because Pat Mahomes is ineffective.
Yep. And speed guys like Tyreek have a harder time. It's harder for them to do anything. That's why the Bears always have this reputation for being really good against number one wide receivers. It's not that. It's just that they don't allow deep balls because they have the way their zone coverage. They just don't let anyone behind them. The Steelers will kind of do that too. So that makes it really difficult for okay, maybe Tyreek Hill gets the ball over the middle in space, but he's not ever going to be in that position where you are with someone like the Chargers who run a ton of man, where there's just, once he beats his guy, there's no one else around. The Steelers will have more people back there because they're running the zone a lot. So that makes it a little bit harder for someone like Tyreek, who I think will be popular this week. And what do I talk about? The Tyreek Hill is the kind of guy to fade when he's popular. I don't know. We'll see there. I will probably have some, but this is much less of a good matchup than it was last week, despite the Chargers being a much better defense than the Steelers in general. The Chargers are a tougher team to beat with speed, if that makes sense.
I think that definitely makes sense. And it is early, but Kareem Hunt is a guy that I'm going to be taking a pretty close look at. Travis Hill, obviously, the very good tight end, had a terrible game, which, if anything, he's kind of, I don't want to say lost in the shuffle. It's 1 week, but this is going to be a polarizing game for everyone. I know I'm going to have exposure. It's just how much and how I do it, that's up in the air still.
Yeah. Any other games stand out to you? I think this will be, I imagine, it's Wednesday. I don't really know yet. I haven't really even started to break down the slate. That just immediately stood out like a sore thumb to me. So I imagine that is going to be the most popular game. I have not looked at totals really. Let me pull those up, see if there's anything else.
While you're doing that, I'll just throw a couple again that caught my eye. Carolina and Atlanta, it's in the ATL, should be a good competitive, division game. I can just tell
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know. I don't like either of those teams in life. I like the Jets, but the Bucks are the team I would root for in that division. I can just tell that I was really heavy on Cam last year, and I think that's going to be a common theme for me in this. If his ownership isn't up where I think it probably should be on some of these slates, and we lost Greg Olsen, that's not great. But him and McCaffrey is just a duo that I'm going to be pairing up a lot. And if he's taking more than 10 rushes, it's so appealing to me at these prices.
That Neal guy, who's like one of the best coverage linebackers in the league, is out for the season, maybe too, on Atlanta. That's a huge bump for McCaffrey.
Yeah, they lost Neal and they lost Jones, right? Which is probably their best defender at this point.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, I wasn't even thinking of Neal. Deion Jones. He is supposedly like the best coverage linebacker in the league.
And I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, they lost him, and then they also lost the safety Neal. So two real pieces of their defense. Jones in particular, I think it's pretty safe to say that he would have seen a ton of McCaffrey. And that's huge. He wasn't great last week. He saw plenty of targets. Those are guys I can tell even now that I'm going to be going back to. Julio on the other side, I'm not exactly sure what to do with just yet. I have memories of him dropping that easiest touchdown of the year last year against Carolina right through the hands. 8,400, maybe if AB is soaking up a ton, you can look there. Definitely in play, of course.
Yep. Christ, did you know that the Pittsburgh KC game has the highest total by 3 points? It's a 53. The next one is New Orleans and Cleveland. That's the thing.
I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised, to be honest.
A question from the chat. Michael Wilmoth wanted to say Alex Smith seems to be popping in projections. Thoughts? Alex Smith, you're right. He's the actual best value per dollar in my projections, like Connor's second. It's usually all quarterbacks because quarterbacks are all underpriced in a vacuum, but you can't play more than one, so it doesn't matter. Like if you were able to play 3 quarterbacks, you would be a donkey to not play 3 quarterbacks. Alex Smith is popping because Indiana's bad. He has a good he's a good player. His yards per attempt is nice and solid. Washington has a pretty high total, so that is going to impact his touchdown projection. Touchdowns are more important for quarterbacks than they are for anyone else as far as getting your projection up because they're the most everyone's very reliant on them, but a quarterback doesn't get anything done if they don't get touchdowns. There are other ways for other players to do their thing. And quarterbacks should get more touchdowns, right? In theory. So, yeah. So he's, and it's just that Indiana is terrible and Washington is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
He seems right. And he's super cheap. I think is he still like 50?
He's flat 6, which certainly a reasonable. There are some, we're not going to dig through this whole slate right now. But I will say there are some Matt Ryan's 5,700. There are some GPs down there. And you're right. Quarterback on the whole is just, the highest quarterback is Breeze at 72. Like other positions, you have guys in the 8s, even the 9s sometimes.
Yeah. We got Alvin Kamara at 9,500 this week. How much Alvin Kamara are you playing, buddy?
Well, most likely roughly 0%. But we'll see. I mean, I know it sometimes feels like I'm just like a stubborn person. I certainly do not try to be in DFS. If the situation is right and I look at him and I think, wow, he's not going to be as popular as people say, there's a chance I could be overweight. I don't think that's going to happen in any aspect, though. Yeah. I bet he's popular and I bet I come in under.
I almost definitely will too. I think he's fairly priced. 9,500 is fine. Like he has the same projection pretty much. It's within half a point of James Conner. And Kamara has a massive standard deviation, right? He's got the highest rover. He's Tommy Fleetwood. He's got the highest rover on tour. He's just one of those dudes because, like we saw last week, he can drop 42. I don't see that happening though. I don't think that's particularly likely. So
Neither
I'm going to take the under on that. And I think you're right. I think people will still play him because, he looks awesome. He's really good awesome at football. He's awesome. Yeah. But 9,500 fully priced. There's other spots I liked a little better. So probably won't get there. The other one that stood out to me, Philly defense. I think that's going to be a fun one because Fitzpatrick just hung 1,000,000 points on the Saints. Fitzpatrick is a very high variance player, and we've seen the bad Fitzpatrick games. Philly's defense is awesome. They're on the road, but I think that's a really enticing spot because I do think that it's possible that people will think, not that, I know people aren't like crazy or anything like that. I don't think anyone thinks the Bucs are going to the Super Bowl or anything but last week, a lot of people played the Saints defense. Didn't go so well. So maybe they're scared a little bit by playing the Philly defense. I think that's silly. I think Philly's awesome. So they get a lot of pressure on people, and the Tampa Bay offensive line's still not good. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has done some crazy stuff in his day. So
I wish I could argue against that, but it's true. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll bounce on out. Broncos defense right below it is probably the team that I've circled on defense right now. But yeah, Eagles, I see it.
I really wish Joey Bosa was helpful while we're talking about team defense because your boy Josh Allen is starting this weekend.
I know.
Oh my God, that's such a nut spot for the Chargers, but
I would hope that, I don't ever want to say that they know what they're doing up there because they don't. But if you're going to start him, at least they're home, and I would really hope that they try to keep him out of spots that are just insanely bad. It's going to be bad either way, but they better not have him just taking a full-on beating. And if Bosa was there, yeah, that would be a super smash spot potentially.
Yeah. And it's funny because that is a big difference. Having that one extra pass rusher makes a difference for the way everything else works because they can put two guys on Ingram now. And if Allen has the thing with a rookie quarterback like that, if he has a little bit more time, he can maybe make the throw that he wants to make. And I just want to see him under pressure because he's going to make some atrocious throws.
So bad.
Some pick sixes. It's going to happen. Your boy. Very exciting. Last question was about the Vikings defense, potentially with Rodgers banged up. I actually think Rodgers is less likely to do anything crazy if he's stuck in the pocket. He doesn't really make bad throws. So you're more likely to get Rodgers in trouble if he's on the run doing something. And the Packers tackles, Bakhtiari and Bulaga, are both really good when they're healthy. They were not healthy a lot of last year. So I'm not, as awesome as the Vikings are, I'm not super, super into that one.
Those guys are never healthy. But they are right now.
Right now, though. So.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Every time I always see Bulaga hurt.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think if anything, you may get a couple cheap sacks because Rodgers doesn't want to be touched and he goes down. But other than that, he gets the ball out quickly and he just doesn't make really egregious mistakes. The Steelers D right above it, more in a tournament setting. I'm not sure exactly with cash in mind. I haven't thought that far, but I echo those thoughts. Rodgers is just so smart. He rarely makes some multiple bad decisions.
Right. And if the couple sacks thing is what you're talking about, that could certainly happen. But for that to really pay off in tournaments, then what you need to have happen is for all of these crazy high variance quarterbacks. We got rookies, we got Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, and Ryan Fitzpatrick all have to not throw 3 picks. One of them's throwing 3 picks.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I think the Vikings, the chances that they can fend off all of them is so unlikely. They probably beat maybe the majority of them, but there's going to be a couple of defenses that just smash them. And I don't think in any way the Vikings can compete with that no matter what happens.
Yeah, and that's even if you're like looking at I'm trying to think of what Minnesota's got a decent projection. It's like 8 points. I mean
They feel fringe cashy to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean the Rams are the real hot one. They're actually the highest projection.
That's because Sam Bradford looked.
Yeah,
I can't imagine we see that again.
And Arizona's offensive line is horrid, and the Rams' defensive line is uniquely
good.
So it'll be wild to see. Yeah, I don't know. I'm likely picking on those rookie quarterbacks in tournaments this week for defense, just to try and get one of them to be a little off. So yeah, maybe I just like play 75% Roethlisberger, random assorted Roethlisberger stacks, and then the other 25% of teams play the Steelers defense. We'll see what happens. But I think that's probably about enough for us today. We had a pretty long show considering it was Euro golf and college football and good stuff.
Yeah, it was a show rattled with weird topics and technical difficulties, but we got through it. Appreciate everyone watching. Tomorrow, just to reiterate, if you didn't hear earlier, you will not see this show at 2:30. It will be us two and Lofty at 7 p.m. breaking down a little showdown and talking about some football. So stop on in.
Absolutely. If you haven't voted yet in our Twitter poll, you should do that. We got
1 day left.
Yep, 1 day left. We'll be talking about it on Friday. Thanks, Dan, for stepping in. Josh, we're thinking about you. Hang in there, man. And we will talk to you all next time.